Hey guys, this is Mel, and I am back to talk about Motherland Fort Salem, episode 210, titled Revolution Part 1, which premiered Tuesday, August 24th, 2021 on Freeform. It is also the season finale. I'm recording roughly 20 minutes after the episode has aired, and my goodness, guys, what an episode. I mean, last week's episode left on a really huge cliffhanger. Which pretty much amounted to like this huge climactic battle, and then this episode is just like a whole bunch of different bombs were dropped on us, and it's just like it hits you in the feel. So I really wanted to start talking about it. So huge spoiler alert: if you haven't seen the episode already, please go do so first, and then come back and see what I have to say about the episode. My other video reminders are up on screen, so take a moment to remind yourselves of those. So yeah, it's a lot, guys. So I'll try to go through everything as best I can. Without spoiling it, I really do say go watch it for yourself, just so you get like the full scope of it as well. But otherwise, tune in to see what I picked up on or what stuck in my head the most after it all aired. So let's start with the timeline of this episode. So it continues from where 209 left off to the point that at the end of 209, this is when the witch plague starts and pretty much infiltrating and infecting our soldiers. And when we return at the start of this episode, it's when it's like really in the thick of this fight. Our units and their coven are trying to get to safety. They're trying to try not to get infected, but also try to fight, which is a little tricky because the Camarilla have used their own workings against them. So that's quite something. Huge episode reminder, I'm going to say, is the season finale in itself. Huge thanks that it's season finale. We'll talk about that later. But the villain obviously is going to be the Camarilla as a whole, just because they're targeting the base. It's like there is a huge target, you know. But let's start with the episode breakdowns or the storylines. I picked up on 3 different ones, and they're not necessarily 3 different storylines. It's more of like 3 stages that the episode goes through, because we finish one focus and then we move to the next focus and then the next focus. It's not like with usual episodes you have different facets of storylines being focused, and then eventually they do come together. So this one's more of like a step-by-step. So the first one being attack on Fort Salem, followed by murder charges, and then followed by combined rescue, if you catch where I'm going with this. So with the first storyline with the attack on Fort Salem is literally the Camarilla infiltrating with the witch plague. With this, we find out that Penelope is actually the source of the witch plague, and she seems to be unaware, or maybe she's quote-unquote under the influence and not being aware that she is the source of what's killing every soldier on the base. But in the end, she did have to be eliminated by Marielle and Abigail with consent from Tally, or that all 3 of them needed to agree to the plan, and ultimately they had to stop the source in order to save everyone else on the base. So there's that. But throughout this infiltration, Alder and the biddies were killed. Or the biddies get killed first because they got infected by the mycelium, but because the biddies were killed, Alder ended up in this calcified wooden state. She kept fighting to have those final moments before she was released back into the mycelium to go where the dead witches go. So there's that with that storyline. The second storyline, or the second part of the episode, is about murder charges. And I will have to say this. When we finished the whole attack on Fort Salem by like the 3rd act, it's like we're not even at the halfway point of the episode. We're almost at the halfway point. Now I'm left wondering, I'm thinking this whole fight was going to be like this whole episode thing. But when we finished it, it's like, what else could they be doing in this finale? And this is where it comes with the murder charges. And that is we finding out that Vice President Silver wants to charge Abigail and Raelle and Tally for Penelope's murder because the camera crew that were meant to be on base to film a press interview with Penelope captured her execution on tape. Like, first of all, why are they recording? But anyways, so he wants that unit to press charges, and Petra goes to President Wade, who won't help because she wants the witches in the military, and essentially all witches, to be accountable for their actions. So they're not getting any presidential support at all, which I find bullshit, especially if these witches are meant to be fighting your military battles. Why would you not help them out? So with that refusal, that leads to part 3, which is the combined rescue where Nicta, Rael, Abigail, and Tally, on their escort to Washington, they get intercepted and are rescued by Adele, Kalita, Scylla, Quinn, Anacosta, and Petra. And they are now told to go on the run with Nicta, Scylla, and Quinn until things are taken care of, as Petra and Anacosta go back to base and into the lion's den, essentially, to try to fix things with what's going on. And yeah, so that's a bit of something there. But the last moments of the episode, we'll get back to everything in a moment, but the last moments of the episode show within the mycelium's heart, which is underneath Fort Salem, that beating, like, web of muscle from the looks of it, we see Alder waking up as if a new body is being created or being formed within the mycelium strands, as if she's in a cocoon of some sort, and she wakes up with the same, I think it's the same color eyes that Rael has whenever she taps into the mycelium's power. And then the season just ends it there, and I'm thinking, that's just mean, first off, but I mean, what a way to end it with questions. But let's get into the tidbits before we dissect everything else. But we find out that we see a moment when Adele was at risk of being killed by a Camarilla member. Kalita steps in and kills that Camarilla instead, which leads to her apologizing to her brother for her previous judgments on him killing and liking to kill, and pretty much stepping away from their traditions, because she didn't allow herself to step into her brother's shoes now that she had to, because she didn't want to see her brother be killed. She did what she judged him for doing beforehand. We also find out in this moment, or not in this moment, but with their dynamic, we also find that Kalita is warming up to the idea of Adele and Abigail, or at least she's warming up to liking Abigail, showing worry about Abigail's situation when she is pretty much pulled into custody for an arraignment. So we get that. We do get, I mentioned before about Alder's quote-unquote death, and how before she was pretty much given forth to the mycelium wall, she is able to have goodbyes with Anacosta, Abigail, Rael, and Tally before the four of them give her to the mycelium I have a question actually about that later, but we do see four different heartwarming moments about pretty much Alder being told what her influence and her presence brought to each of the four women. So that was pretty powerful there. Also, speaking of Anacosta, a side segue into her investigation of the breach in security at Fort Salem that led to this Camarilla infiltration. She learns from Sterling, who is a part of Vice President Silver's protection detail, that Sterling only granted one camera crew access to the base to do the interview, yet the logbook showed that he granted 3 camera crews access. So Anacosta learns that 2 of them were forged. So at least they're on some kind of lead to figure out where the source of the breach was. But speaking of the breach, we have Vice President Silver meeting with Albin Hurst, which is that Camarilla doctor, confirming their alliance, which I suspected the moment we met President Silver about him being part of the Camarilla. But we also confirmed that Albin Hurst was the guy who infected Penelope with the witch plague by pretending to be that camera guy who was miking her up. And confirming my suspicions that Vice President Silver's goodbye to his daughter was a lot more heartfelt to just be able to see you later, and more of a final goodbye, as if he knew his daughter was going to be killed in this attack. I didn't think it was more like he knew she was going to be the sacrificial lamb to host the thing that was going to be killing everything. But yeah, apparently he's too far deep into the Camarilla's hold to be willing to sacrifice his own daughter. So there's that. We also find out they're planning to wipe out all the witches and make Silver the new president by having Wade be the scapegoat to everything. So yeah, I'm wondering if I'd feel any. It just seems like now it's like the men trying to take power away from the women, but I can't help it but wonder, would I still feel the same way if Albin Hurst was a woman? like, so far every Camarilla member seems to be male, and I don't know if that's on purpose or not. Yeah, we got Bonnie supporting Shane and stuff, but she wasn't like fully into like the Camarilla stuff, right? Like the only time we see any of the women joining the Camarilla frontline, I think, was at the gala with like the dresses, but like we don't see any faces. So like I'm wondering, like, would I feel any differently if it was a mix? But I don't know, that's just me. I just, at the very end, when there are like two men conspiring to not only take the witches down, which are predominantly women, but then also take down President Wade, who is the Madam President, couldn't help but wonder. But again, that's just a social divide in this world as well, that it couldn't help but wonder, obviously, if it was truly a conscious decision on that part or not. That's just me just wondering and stuff. So there's that. Also, I wanted to take note that Albin Hirsch specifically told Petra this line, and he said, "The union of earth and sky must be prevented at all costs." And I believe he was alluding to Abigail and Adil, because Abigail, the Bellwether family, is mainly known for their weather workings. So that would be sky. And then Adil and his people are known for their earth workings. So I'm wondering if it's a little bit more. I also remember Earth and Sky that does have some Greek mythology tones from it, from my understanding, from Gaia and Eros, I believe. It's been a while since I've dived into the Greek mythology. But yeah, Petra seemed to be intrigued, and then he just did not give her anything, but he gave her this knowing look of like, I know something you don't know. So I'm wondering if there is something more, like mythology-wise, to Abigail and Adil's union and such. So that's something there. We also have Nicta not liking that Albanhurst thanked her for her work with the spree, since it gave the public opinion the worst, or it gave the worst public opinion about witches. Like the spree pretty much did the Camarilla's work for them. It kind of like eased them back into doing their bidding in the shadows. Like, you know what I mean? So there's that. But let's move on to the most shocking moment of the episode. I have two of them, actually. My most shocking one would have to be Alder's death. If we exclude the last scene of the episode about her waking up in the mycelium, which is also a surprise in itself, but the fact that Alder died, I feared that would happen when I saw the promo, just based off Anacastia's one scene when she's like crying over somebody. I feel like the only person who would have gotten that reaction out of Anacostia would have been Alder if she died. And because it's the finale, it's like, and Alder just stepped down as general, I was very worried that she would die. But actually see her die in the way that she died, I was just completely unexpected. But then to have her like possibly rebirthing within the mycelium, I'm hoping so, because I love Alder and the type of character and the depth that she brings and all that knowledge. So I really don't want to see her go. But it was just shocking to see that unfold also so early in the episode too. So there's that. And another shocking moment I had was Penelope being the source of the witch plague, and then it revealing that her father knowingly allowed her to be that host because he's working with the Camarilla. I mean, I did suspect, so I'm kind of happy that my suspicions were right about her father, but I didn't think he'd be willing to sacrifice his own daughter. Like, I'd figure if anything, he'd want to try to cure her of it, like, quote unquote, cure her from being a witch, instead of actually just outright killing her. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it was a huge shock right there to see the extents that he was willing to do for the Camarilla. So, there's that. But moving on to top 3 favorite moments. It's a lot of groupings, so hopefully I cover it. But the first one is all the combined workings we saw in this episode. I always like it when we get to see them using their powers in action, because of the huge mythology and the depth that they go into this for this world. So specifically when Tally, I think she creates a new working when she's facing the Camarilla, and that new pitch is what pretty much causes the Camarilla's blocking devices to malfunction, and then her telling the rest of the coven to copy her pitch to enact the same results. And then I think that got passed around the other soldiers on the base, and they did the same thing. So that was pretty cool to see. Also, we got the combined workings of Raelle and Abigail when they're trying to stop Penelope. Yes, it was a very emotional and an act that none of them wanted to do, but it was very interesting to see both of their powers join together to do the work that they were doing. Plus, it was just very interesting because they prepared them all season for it, with Raelle trying to learn how to tap into the power of the mycelium and learn how to control it, to Abigail working on that tornado, working all season. And it came to a head at this point. So that was something that I really appreciate, that it wasn't just all of a sudden they could do it. It's been something they've been building to them being able to do it. So that's something there. Another combined working was the actual rescue mission. The fact that we got the huge the fact that we got Scylla's we got Adil rupturing the road to make the car stop, and then we got Scylla's workings with the crow, the Morgan's whisper, and then which allowed for the guards to be under her control. And then we got the tornado workings from Petra as she and Anacosta descended from the helicopter. And then we got Nicta disguising the car with the lighter and stuff. It was just like all these different combined workings to help with the rescue was just amazing to see it all. And I'm just like, yes, combine, and it's all combined different elements too. So that was something as well too. Seeing them all work together was something that like I really appreciate. Now another favorite I had were the goodbyes to Alder. Each one that she got was so emotional that I was almost on the verge of tears, and I didn't want to because I wasn't the only one in the room. But just what each person decided to focus on as their last words to Alder was just so telling and so moving. With Anacosta, it was just more the profound bond between the two of them, how they never really needed words to communicate with each other, and yet she couldn't find the words in that moment to express to Alder how much she means. But in the end, she did call her sister and mother, and just to see her so torn up of the thought of living without her mentor was just heartbreaking. And then for Abigail to express to Alder that she learned how to be a leader through Alder and what it meant to be a leader, and that inspiration there with Raelle, it was all about thanking her, about showing her that she had more potential to push through her darkness, and just believing in her was something else. And then with Tally, about the truth, telling her to find her truth but sticking to it, and then how it just led to something completely different than what they both expected. But then also for her to tell Alder that she was finally understanding all the burdens that her choices have put her through, and that she pretty much told Alder that she can release those burdens now, that they will take it from here. And I just think that that's beautiful. And that also that got me thinking about the Supernatural finale. Spoiler alert, but that's all I'm going to say, is that you have two moments in that finale that pretty much exemplified the same thing that Tally was saying about how you could release your burdens. Like you're free now. Like you can rest in peace. Now you don't have to worry. And I was just like, oh, it got me there. So huge emotions right there. But also the third and final favorite I had is the coven support of the unit. Not only when they were fighting and they're trusting each other, but at the very end of it, with Em addressing the hard decision that Tally, Raelle, and Abigail had to make in regards to Penelope, and how she acknowledges that hard decision, but then also thanks them for making the decision because it saved everyone else in the room and everyone else on base. And that coven support, that they were there for them. And then when Silver tried to come in to take them into his custody, Em and the rest of the soldiers were ready to stand between them and the three that he wanted, and they weren't going to go anywhere. And I truly appreciate that sense of loyalty between them, so I really love that. Plus, I'm also still sensing a bit of something growing between Tally and Gregorio, because Gregorio, once again, only focuses on Tally when he's saying goodbye just after they deal with the Camarilla and they had to split up. And then when he returns to them to check on them to see if they're okay, he focuses only on Tally. So I'm thinking, like, there's got to be something that's going to be brewing from them by the end of this show, because like I feel like it's the small steps and the support that we had for him to her in the beginning of the season is like, I'm sensing something, and I'm kind of here for it. So there's that. But let's move on to top 3 peeved moments. The only peeve I really have is the fact that Penelope was killed. I understand why she was killed, because she was the host of the witch plague. But like, I'm peeved that Silver was capable of sacrificing his daughter. I'm so peeved because also Penelope just found her unit. She was so excited to start basic training with them, and like she was ready to start this next new chapter in her life, and yet her father used her and sacrificed her, and like pretty much she didn't have a chance. And it's just like it hit hard when Tally grieved the way that she did for Penelope, because like I felt that there was so much potential in Penelope, but I understand why she had to die. It's just like, it sucks that like she did just that, like it sucks that she did what she did, kind of a thing. So there's that. But let's move on to random questions very quickly, because it is the season finale. Of course they're going to leave me with questions, but first one, does anyone suspect that Vice President Silver killed his wife when he found out she was a witch? I know he talked briefly about his wife dying. I don't remember the specifics though. But with his willingness to sacrifice Penelope for the Camarilla, I can't help but wonder if maybe he did the same for his wife, or did he genuinely not know about his wife being a witch until Penelope was discovered to be a witch? Like, that's what I'm wondering. If he somehow knew and just like was hoping that it never showed up in Penelope, then like it has me wondering, maybe he did kill his wife. I don't know. I mean, like, dude's been sketchy since the beginning, so like I'm just wondering, like, he's willing to sacrifice his own daughter. Did he do anything nefarious about his wife's own death? I don't know. So there's that. Another question. Will the next season show the unit being Raelle, Tally, and Abigail, would we see them on the road, like trying to stay under the radar, or are we going to see them hiding out in the secession? Because wouldn't that be a little too obvious of a hideout, because that's where the Camarilla abducted Raelle when she was at home in the secession? So wouldn't it be better for them? I mean, I get hiding in plain sight, but like there's got to be a limit, right? So there's that question. Another question. Who is considered the mother in this mythology? Because is it Alder or is it the mycelium? Because I think in this episode both of them were referred to as the mother, because they said that Alder needs to be taken to the mother, and the mother in this scenario is the mycelium. But then Anacostia refers to Alder as mother, plus also Alder created the mycelium, so that would make her the mother of the mycelium, hypothetically, right? So I'm wondering who is the actual mother in this situation. And plus, when the mycelium was explaining their origins to Raelle, didn't they say that they are powered by the mother? Which made me think, okay, maybe they aren't the mother, and the mother in this scenario is Alder. So I'm left wondering, like, who does that title actually belong to? And my last question, do you think that final scene in the episode means that we will see Alder be reborn? And if so, how different will she be from the 300-year-old version that we knew with the biddies? So I'm excited to see that. But moving on to predictions very quickly. Again, there's not really any predictions because this was the season finale, but there are news that came out yesterday, that is August 23rd, that the show was renewed for a season 3, hip hip hooray, but it's been said to be the final season. So on the one hand, I'm bummed that I'm learning beforehand that this season will be the last season, but at the same time, I'm kind of relieved to know, because that means the show would end the way that they want it to end, without like without like, it's better than finding out when you've already shot and written this season that then you get canceled and then you can't really give a proper satisfying ending than if you had like a full season knowing this and being able to plan towards that big ultimate end and getting the stories that you wanted out of it instead of thinking you had another season when you didn't. So on the one hand, I wish there was more seasons to the show because I'm loving the show and all the twists and turns and just the mythology behind it. But if they know beforehand, then I believe that they will give the show the ending it truly deserves and tie up all loose ends. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword where like I'm so happy they got renewed, but at the same time it's like final season. But then that also means there's going to be a lot more risk because they don't have to plan in case they do have another season. Like you can't kill off certain characters, but that means characters like fair game next season. No one's safe. Usually you can like think that your main protagonist is safe because you need them for the next season, but that's not the case. Like everything's on the line. So I'm going to stop talking right now because there's nothing else. But yeah, I forgot another tidbit. I'll write it and you would have seen it popping up. So yeah, guys, what did you guys think of this season? What did you guys like about it? What you think will happen next? Let me know in the comments down below. Love to hear your thoughts, theories, and opinions about this season finale. Also, even your own predictions of what season 3 could bring. Because I absolutely have no idea. Are they on the road? Are they hiding out in the secession? It's definitely going to continue the war between the witches and the Camarilla. Does that mean the Spree are like officially teaming up with the military to take on the Camarilla? Or is it still going to be a three-sided war? No clue how that's going to go. But can't wait to see it. Depending on when season 3 airs, I'm hoping to do recaps, but again, if it's going to be happening in a year's time from now, who knows where I'll be when it comes to where I'll be in a year's time from now. But I do, if anything, hopefully time permits, I do plan to talk about season 3. So I hope you guys check back in when that happens. Click that notification bell if you want to keep track that way. But until next time, guys, this is Mel. Wish you all a great day, great week, wherever you are. Please stay safe in the meantime, check out my other videos. But until the next time, bye for now.